I don't think I could have ever imagined a day like this would come, where I'd get the opportunity to um, sit so close to such an icon of mine and an icon of millions of Indians, young and elderly. So we'll firstly thank you, sir, for doing this, and it's a real pleasure for everyone here and everyone at NASSCOM that you've given time for this. When I was looking for inspiration for how I should structure this conversation, I realized who better to look at for inspiration than yourself. And so I went through many interviews that you've given and many talks that you've done historically to find 5 pertinent quotes that you've given in the past. And I said, let me create an opportunity for the audience here for us to dive deeper into some of those quotes in today's context. I felt that would be very unique for this audience. So with your permission, sir, I'll start. So firstly, on the importance of culture, given the topic of building resilient organizations that are enduring, culture is obviously one of the most important aspects of it. It's the secret sauce for great organizations. It's what keeps them going, whether the ups and downs and the twists and turns. And much has been written about the Infosys culture. And one word that comes to mind when we think about Infosys is respect. And also for the kind of organization that you've built, which respects every individual that's part of it, its customers, and has been built on values of innovation, egalitarian ethos, amongst others. So I was listening to a speech that you gave at Columbia Business School actually in 2009, where you said that respect is more important than money and power. And that advice to young business leaders is probably as relevant today as it was 14 years ago. Now, looking back, sir, can you tell us how this principle has guided your decisions? Because it would be very helpful as a North Pole, as a North Star for the young entrepreneurs of today in a high entropy startup environment that they're building their businesses in.
Well, first of all, Kunal, let me say that I consider it a great privilege and a great honor to be sitting here in conversation with you. You were one of those people who created a discontinuity in our thinking when you started your company, which was a huge success. And you have showed the way for modern entrepreneurs. So thank you very much for sharing your valuable time on spending with me. Well, respect to me is the most important ingredient for any individual, any community, and any nation. Because let me just take the case of a company. If you earn respect from customers, what it means is you have fulfilled your obligation to the customer on time, within budget, and exceeding their expectation of quality. That leads to more and more repeat business. And as you know very well, repeat business is a very important component of growth. Second, there will be a sense of pride of ownership in the minds of those that you have satisfied, those customers that you have satisfied, and they will become your messengers, your ambassadors. If you seek respect from employees, more and more high quality employees will come and work with you. They will talk about their being part of your dream with their parents, with their friends and others, and that attracts more and more employees, and these employees will show longevity. Therefore, the attrition will be lower. Third, if you obtain respect from investors, you will get more and more long-term investors because of your transparency with the investors, because you will bring bad news by the elevator and the good news by the stairs, they will trust you a lot more than otherwise. And we all know what happens when people lose trust in any institution. If you earn respect from the society, then it is perhaps the highest respect you can earn, because society contributes customers, society contributes employees, society contributes investors, society contributes vendor partners, society contributes bureaucrats, and society contributes politicians. Therefore, if you earn respect from the society, then all these stakeholders will enhance their trust in you, and therefore they want to associate with you, they want to they want to leverage what you offer, and the corporation is likely to grow even faster than anything else. That's what I realized very early in my life, and that's how, when we met here in my single bedroom apartment in Bandra West with 6 younger colleagues of mine, one person said he wants our company to be the one with the highest revenue, second one said highest profitability, third one said highest market capitalization. And my style has always been, in conducting internal board meetings, to listen to everybody and then say what I wanted. And I said respect, and they wanted me to elucidate why I said that. So I am repeating that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, on a similar note of culture, addressing young entrepreneurs, about 2 years ago at the Atal Innovation Mission, you had said, good culture takes time to develop and bad culture spreads very fast. My question to you, sir, is how can organizations, particularly young organizations that are scaling up fast, keep an eye on this aspect and create the necessary feedback loops so that they know what kind of culture is being built, especially when they are trying to race the car at 100 miles an hour?
Well, on the positive side, leadership by example is the best way to inculcate a certain culture of values amongst the younger people in the company, because everybody is looking at you. Everybody wants to imitate you. Everybody wants to imitate Kunal in Snapdeal or whatever organizations we are talking about. Now, on the issue of preventing violation of culture, violation of values taking place, I think the leaders will have to be unequivocal, and they have to take extremely quick decisions. Let me give you one example. We had a very sad event in 2002 July, where one of the senior people, an extraordinary individual, violated our norms. I was in London. I was leading the Indo-British partnership from India's side, from CII, and I got a call from my colleague Nandan saying that there is this problem. I just returned to India. I called a virtual meeting of the board of directors. I gave everybody opportunity to express their views, everybody to look at the data, and within 48 hours, that gentleman was out. And we did whatever was necessary. Everybody told me, everybody in the industry, every investor, major investors, I still remember one of the senior officers of Capital International telling, Mr. Murthy, you are putting your company at great risk because this guy is a great salesperson. I said, no. For us, values and respect is more important than market capitalization, than share price, etc. So I would say the moment people come to know that you as the leader will not tolerate any such violation, and you take tough decisions, and then in some way it spreads very easily like fire, and then I think people would have a certain deterrent to not to violate this. That's what we did, and that's.
Thank you, sir. Now, just changing gears a little bit to the concept of guardrails, particularly at a time when, at least in the last few years, young companies, startups have been pushed to grow at atrocious paces and spend a lot of money, etc. Now, obviously, there is a pullback and focus on profitability has come in. And I want to share an anecdote I heard very recently about in the early days of Infosys, where if you give me the pleasure of sharing this really amazing story, Mr. Murthy and Mrs. Murthy, along with Mrs. Murthy's sister, went to Kolkata at the ITC Kolkata many, many years ago now. And they had booked 2 rooms. One room had 2 beds, and one room had a single bed, obviously for Mrs. Murthy's sister. And while checking out, while checking in, Mr. Murthy told the staff at the front desk that for the double occupancy room, they need to split the bill into 2 because Infosys will only pay for him, and Infosys will not pay for Mrs. Murthy. The story doesn't end there. What ensued was a heated battle in which the name of the ITC chairman was also brought in, that he needs to come fix this issue because this is what needs to be done. In the end, where the settlement was reached was Mr. Murthy had to sleep in the single bed bedroom, and Mrs. Murthy and her sister actually got the big room. But sir, while it's a story, it's a fun story, it carries a lot of inspiration also. And in this era of fast growth and chasing big top-line goals at any cost, how does a company, especially a young company, try and balance these two? The aspiration to grow fast and the ambition of the founders and their investors, and the need to keep the costs in check and feel the pinch of every rupee that is being spent by the company?
There are multiple solutions to this. First, of course, building up a culture. Whatever little I am today is because of my parents, because of my early teachers, high school teachers, college teachers, because of my bosses in India and in Paris. I learned so much from these people by observing how they conduct themselves. And I also saw how people around them respected these people. So that's one way of inculcating a culture of values in oneself. There is a second way, and that is the elders in the environment are the ones that have to advise the youngsters. Frankly, I don't hold the young entrepreneurs as responsible for this. I think the venture capitalists who provide money for them, then the various advisors they have in terms of the board of directors, they are the ones, they have to tell them to accept deferred gratification, to realize that sacrifice in the short and medium term will indeed lead to much bigger returns in the long term. That's been the story of Infosys. You know, we all traveled economy class, even on international flights, till we reached $1 billion of revenue and about $251 million of net income, that is after-tax income. At that point of time, some of our external directors, they felt that we were carrying it a little bit too far. They said, you guys are also getting older, so therefore, please relax a little bit. Now, I think these are the things that come naturally to a person. First, because of a certain culture. Second, because of the influence of the wise men and women around them. So I would hold the venture capitalists who propounded the theory that what is important is only top line and not bottom line. I think that is completely wrong. In some way, in many cases, this also became a Ponzi scheme. Because, you know, I am in Series B. I go to Series C. In Series C, I sell my shares to you at some profit, I get off. And it is the Series Z fellow who will be left carrying the tin box. So therefore, I think I am not at all a critic of the younger people. I am a critic of the older people like me. And therefore, the mature venture capitalists, the internal, the board of directors and advisors who have to be open and honest in saying things as they are. I think that is the only way we can try and mitigate this.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Now, one of the key aspects of building a business is about the ability to evolve and change and pivot as needed.
Yeah.
And you once said that it is very important to learn quick lessons from your failure, very important to recognize symptoms of failure pretty early, and it is very, very important to not be attached too much to the idea.
Yeah.
You have to know when to give up on an idea. Now, sir, how does one decide when to give up and when to continue to build and fight? When you have fully invested as an entrepreneur into an idea, your entire life is about that idea. But when do you call it quits if you do?
Kunal, I think that's a very good question. While I am not smart enough to give a general answers to that, however, I'll try and give you my own experience. In 1976, almost immediately after I came back from Paris, wanting to become an entrepreneur, I started a company called Softronics. And I realized that there was really no market for services in India at that time because there were very few computers and most of the computers were in the government or in some of the institutes like atomic energy and ISRO, etc. So therefore, I knew that I won't be successful. So within a matter of 9 months, I closed it. Now, what are the reasons why an entrepreneur should close down his? And that is, if you find that there is a structural weakness in your idea as far as the market is concerned, that is the time to give up. Now, what is a structural weakness? That's a good question. A structural weakness, as far as I am concerned, is one over which you have no way of finding a solution. It is something over which no matter what sacrifice you do, no matter how hard you work, no matter what team you have, you will not be able to overcome that. In my own case, no matter how hard I work, no matter how many hours I work, I knew that there would not be a change in policy of the government of India to allow the import of more modern computers into the country in the private sector. And I had no wherewithal to even influence the government. Not that I wanted to, but I had no wherewithal. That to me is a structural weakness. It could be that structural weakness could come in the form of technology, it could come in the form of talent, it could come in the form of processes, it doesn't matter. But it is something over which no matter what you do, you will not be able to find a solution on your own. That to me is a structural weakness, and that's when I gave up Softronics, and that's when I became the general manager of software at Patti Computer Systems Limited. I had an excellent boss. I learned a lot from him, and that's when I founded Infosys, and the rest is history.
Thank you, sir. Another thing that struck me was your observation that it's actually much more, everyone talks about learning from failures, but you mentioned that it can be much more difficult to learn from successes.
Yeah.
Because if we fail, we think carefully about why we fail, or we usually do, about the precise cause. But success, you said, can indiscriminately reinforce all our prior actions, which I thought was very wise and insightful. Success is never questioned, sir. Usually is not. Neither by oneself and neither by others. Now, did you ever have to walk away from successful decisions because you figured out that despite the success, it was actually the wrong decision?
I would say the only reason why we walked away from a big opportunity was because the means was not very good. There was a prospect outside India in a developed country, and he offered us huge revenue by way of project if we were nice to him. I don't want to say more than that. But it was nobody was around me. Nobody was around me. Only he and I. It was very easy for us to have accepted it. But somehow we didn't like the smell of it. And that's how we gave it up. The second answer, I'll tell you, second example. In 1995, now this happened in 1993, the first instance that I spoke about. Second instance in 1995, a Fortune 10 company came to Bangalore. They wanted to renegotiate with five of us, five of the biggest companies in India, include, well, big, when I say biggest, they were all very small, but at least the top five kind of stuff. And they wanted us to reduce prices by a certain amount. All my younger colleagues, they were in favor of doing it. But I felt it was not right, because if we did it for them, then we'd had to do with others. And that meant our profitability will go down. We cannot invest enough in technology. We cannot invest enough in infrastructure. We cannot invest enough in people, in training, and all of that. And therefore, very respectfully, I declined. And let me tell you, all other four companies accepted it. Some of them later on gave up. But that was an opportunity where we could have enhanced our revenue to a much higher growth rate. But we said, that's okay, it doesn't matter. So this is the second example.
Thank you, sir. I want to talk a little bit about building a team. It's a theme you've spoken about many times over the years.
Yeah.
You referred to the way Infosys was built in the early days, and you said, by and large, we have recruited very smart people.
Yeah.
And smart people, they learn pretty quickly.
Yeah.
They adapt very quickly, and they think of new innovations. You have also said, in addition, if longevity is the best index to measure a company, a basic requirement is the ability of the corporation to generate new and new leaders.
Yeah.
Now, what were the key attributes, sir, that you were looking for in these young recruits when you were building your team in the initial days? And what were the markers that helped you identify that which amongst these will become the future leaders of Infosys?
There are two attributes of a professional that will help him or her to move up the corporate ladder pretty quickly. First is competence. You need to have competence. You can't grow with zombies. But the second one, and perhaps in many ways more important, but at least as important, is the value system. Therefore, if you remember, Kunal, our byline until the time I used to be the executive chairman was powered by intellect, driven by values. Therefore, we looked at competence or intellect or learnability, as I used to define, and the values. In this, learnability is very simple. I used to give a puzzle, a set of puzzles, and one of them was rotating a matrix and representing the elements of the new matrix in terms of old matrix. I had established a correlation between the smartness of the person and the time he took. If the person did it in a minute, he was super smart. But if the person took 3 minutes, he was bright, very bright, but not the best. If he took more than 5 minutes, it's very ordinary. So measuring competence, learnability, that's all very easy. But measuring the value system is extremely difficult, almost, I would say, impossible, in a matter of half an hour or an hour or maybe even 3 hours of discussions, particularly when you are recruiting senior people. That will only come out over a period of time in situations where their value system will get tested. And I talked to you about how we had to let go of one of the finest salespeople that we had, head of sales. That was an issue of value system. So value system, verification is a very tough task. I don't claim to have had experience in judging people on that. Though I must say, when I formed Infosys, all the other people that came to me were the people that I had recruited. Some of them as software engineer trainees. And I had seen them over a period of 2 to 3 years. So that was easy because there were many, many situations where I could see the kind of choices that they made in situations. So that told me a little bit about their value system. So I must accept that I have no solution to that problem. But all that I would say is that by taking a quick and decisive action when a person violates the value system, you would be sending message to everybody else in the company that this will not be tolerated, and that's a reasonable deterrent. That's all what I would say.
Thank you, sir. As you were speaking, the only thought that was coming to my mind is so much of your ethos is around values and character is what you do when nobody else is looking.
Exactly.
And I'm so inspired, like all of us are inspired. The nation is inspired by what you've done for the country and for an entire generation of people in the IT industry, startup industry. And I know you're not slowing down anytime soon. You're going strong. And we wish you great health, sir, and please continue to inspire the nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to make one statement. There is a book called Winners Never Cheat. Winners Never Cheat. It is a book by John Huntsman. John Huntsman started his own chemical company in the US, and I was very fortunate to be on the board of overseers of Wharton when he was the chairman. And he has written this small book, probably about 150 pages. And my request to as many people here as possible, particularly to youngsters, is to buy this book and keep it with you as your Bible. And in the moment of your dilemma, your moral confusion, kindly look at the relevant page, and that may provide you some confidence to take the right path. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. For more interesting content, like, comment and subscribe to our NASSCOM YouTube channel.